I'm doing good. All right. We'll go ahead and get started. So obviously I am Dr. Abernathy, and this is Accounting 4100, Advanced Financial Accounting. We're an online class. Usually there's at least 2 or 3 people who have wandered into their own classroom. Hopefully not likely to have happened online. So today I just wanted to kind of introduce the class, introduce myself, talk about what to expect, and we'll jump into, should have a little bit of time to jump into chapter 1 as well. So obviously I am Dr. Abernathy. Sorry, I have things you need to know about me and online. I have 4 kids. We homeschool, so there is a relatively high probability that at some point during the semester a fight will break out in the background. There will be crying, screaming, wailing, gnashing of teeth. Just pretend like it didn't happen, right? I'll edit that out of the class videos. But I have 4 kids. I have another one on the way. So there is always activity going on here. I am on my second go round at Kennesaw State University. I graduated from the University of Alabama, which happens to be the 2020 College Football National Champions. Sorry, all you Georgia fans will probably drop class now. Hey, Taylor, that's I got at least one Roll Tide. So I graduated from Alabama in 2010. I went to Oklahoma State. I taught at Kennesaw from 2013 to 2017. I mistakenly thought that I could find a better school. After a year, I came back and realized that this was the greatest place on earth. So I love Kennesaw State, and I love teaching advanced accounting. This is probably my favorite class to teach. So hopefully we will have a lot of fun doing this in an online format. We had a pretty good fall semester class online, so we will. So I enjoy teaching it. Let's see. I'm gonna let's see. I think that's pretty much all about me. I'm gonna share my syllabus with you, and we'll kind of go through that. I taught a class right before this, so my voice is not in mid-season form yet. All right, so obviously there's me. I got my PhD from Alabama. I'm a CPA from the state of Alabama. I worked after I got my master's degree. I worked in public accounting worked for like the Big Four, and then a regional firm for about 5 years, and then I went into private practice. I was the controller of an engineering firm for about 5 years before I decided to go back and get my PhD. So I have quite a bit of accounting experience. This, I may go to campus a couple of times, but I pretty much, this is my office right now in Cartersville, Georgia. So if you're in Cartersville, you can come hang out with me. But otherwise, my office hours will be done, by Teams or Zoom or something of that nature. But there is my office number and my office phone if you just want to go by, and I don't know why you would ever want to go by there. My email, primary means of communication for me is going to be at my kennesaw.edu email. Okay, so if you need a response from me, please email me at my Kennesaw email. Some of you know, everything is done these days on our phone, right? So if you email me at this Kennesaw email, it is super easy for me to respond to you. If you email me on our D2L email, it is not as easy for me to email you back. So if you need a response, then that's the place to email me. If you don't need a response, you just need to send me some information like, hey, that was an awesome class today. You can send it through D2L. I will use D2L email to send out a lot of information to the whole class. You do need that. Our class is what is considered online synchronous, right? These are terms that we had no idea what they meant prior to pandemic world that we live in now. But what this means is that this is an online class that will be just like our in-person class. We will have class meetings from 12:30 to 1:45 on Tuesday, Thursdays. Just instead of being in a classroom, we'll be online. I do, and I've talked to several of you, the recordings will be posted online as soon as class is over. So if you have to miss a class, I do think there's advantages to coming to class to get your questions answered. Maybe to tweak a little bit of your learning. But I completely understand if you're unable to attend, the class recordings are up there for you, and I'll show you where all that is in just a minute. Our textbook is Hoyle, Schaefer, Duknick. It's a McGraw-Hill book. We're in day one access, so you should have access to the book, and you do need the 8th edition. So you should have access to the book in our Class Connect website as well. If you're kicking the tires on this class, if you're thinking about taking it, but you're not really sure, and you're just here today and Thursday to figure out if you can tolerate me for a semester, or the course load for a semester, you do have to opt out by Friday to get a refund for the day one access. Okay, so be aware of that. Day one access is here. Has anyone registered? Have y'all gotten on to Connect yet and taken a look through there? Okay, no problems there. Good. Yeah. Well, and if you're old school, you can get a loose leaf copy of the textbook. You just email day1@kennesaw.edu. I strongly encourage you, whatever your intentions are for this course, please by Thursday or Friday, I strongly encourage you to register on our Connect website. That's where all of our homeworks and practice and things like that are going to be. So I strongly encourage you to get on there and do that. So as I mentioned, our class will be, just like a face-to-face class, except we'll just be doing it online. Usually for every chapter, I don't like to lecture. This is, again, the reason I love this class is we're going to be, we get to work some really mama jama problems. That's an official math term, is mama jama. But we work these really long problems, but there's typically a lecture day where I make sure that we have the same terminology, that we're on the same page. Class is more effective if you've prepared in advance, you've done the reading, maybe even attempted the homework, and then as we come to class and we work problems, all of this will make a lot of sense. Some of you in asking about the time commitment, we're in class, 3 hours a week. I would say that 5 hours outside of class would be a reasonable, probably on the lower end, time commitment that you would need to apply to this, just kind of going back over all the materials and working problems, working homeworks, things like that. Now, let me repeat. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Okay, when I say 5 hours per week should be your time commitment outside of class, I mean that 5 hours per week, okay? Because as we get to exam one, you know, I invariably have students who perform poorly on exam one that say, gosh, I studied, you know, 25 hours for this exam. And then I find out that they studied the 25 hours leading up to the exam. Studying 5 hours a week for 5 weeks and studying for 25 straight hours leading up to the exam are two vastly different things. Okay, so I strongly, you know, each of these chapters is going to build upon itself. I strongly recommend that you master each chapter as we go, rather than kind of waiting for waiting for the exam to try to put all the pieces together. As I mentioned, you know, I expect you to come to class. I think there's value in coming to class. So, you know, I would strongly encourage you to come. I've had students, back when I was here before, it was about 2015, I had a student show up for exam, never seen him before. And he showed up and he was registered in my class and actually did pretty well in the class. He just worked. He couldn't come to class, so he had to do that. D2L, you know, I put most of the material out on D2L. I'll kind of walk us through D2L in just a minute. But you know, what everybody's wondering is, how are we going to be evaluated? Primarily, you know, this is an exam-heavy course, right? So it is going to be your ability to learn the material and perform on the exams. So we have 4 exams, 100 points each, and homeworks and quizzes. Your homeworks and quizzes are online and in Connect. I've changed the format of this class this time, okay? And in the past, we've covered chapters 1 through 6, and then chapters 9 and 10, we get into partnerships. What I've tried to do is space out the material a little bit. Hopefully, I think it may give us a little bit of time, a little bit more time to master the material. But for chapter 10, what we have is I've put out a homework and a quiz for chapter 10 that you'll be responsible for. I think it'll be valuable for your learning, and it will introduce any material that I think you need to know from chapter 10. So it will also kind of act as a bonus for your homeworks and quizzes. Okay, so there are 8 homework assignments. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to cover 7 chapters, but there's 8 homeworks, and these will be completed in Connect. Each one's worth 8.33 points, and that is because I will use your 6 highest. So basically, you have 2 drops for your homeworks, 2 drops for your quizzes. So no makeups, no extensions, no, you know, dog ate my computer, whatever. I don't, you know, I am sympathetic, but I don't want, you know, you don't have to email me and tell me like, oh my gosh, you know, my computer died at 11:30 last night. Can I get an extension? Because there are no extensions, okay? And that'll just count as one of your drops, okay? Now, let me say, and I'll go ahead and kind of go down a different rabbit trail right now. What you'll find about me is you guys are some of you are already in the workforce. Some of you are going to be in the accounting field, you know, very shortly. My approach is I treat you very much like adults, and I expect you to kind of show that same respect to me. I don't expect cheating, dishonesty to be a problem of any nature. And so I'm not out to try to you know, catch you cheating or anything. So I say that to say that you know, as a class, you know, it's hard early on, but when we develop that relationship, it's important that we work together, because if there's an exam and all you guys are in, what else are you taking? Like, is everybody else in another class, like international accounting or advanced tax or something crazy like that? fraud and audit. Yeah. So a lot of you guys are in other classes. I know that when I taught face to face previously, you know, like all of my students were complaining one night that we had an exam and they're like, oh yeah, we just got done with an advanced tax class, and I was like, why didn't you tell me, guys? Like our schedule can be pretty flexible, right? So if you know, if you have a big project due, you know, please let me know, and we can kind of work around things like that. Okay. Finance. I need an extension on finance just by itself. All right. Oh, so our exams, so we got 3 exams and a final exam, and these are going to be administered through Connect using Proctorio proctoring software. And so if you haven't used Proctorio, it's kind of cool, but you do need a webcam, and you need to take the exam through Google Chrome. Okay. I just remembered. I'll come back to that. And we'll have a practice exam to make sure that everything's set up properly. But basically, Proctorio is kind of like lockdown browser. You're not allowed to you know, copy and paste or print, or you know, and it records you as you're taking the exam, so you can't call up your friends or whatever else. You can only use one screen. So we'll talk about that. You know, as we get closer to the exam to get everybody ready for it. What I started to say previously, and we'll talk about this for you know, the exam as well. There aren't any makeups. I don't do makeup extensions or anything. But if you know, let's also use common sense, right? If you get COVID and you're you know, down for 2 weeks, I don't want you to miss 2 homeworks and be like, well, you know what, he told me I can't get an extension. Like, you know, let's use common sense and work together. Like, you know, if there are strange circumstances, then certainly, you know, I need to know about that. Proctorio, Integrity are basically the same thing. Proctorio is associated with McGraw-Hill. I think Tegrity was like an add-on. I know that McGraw-Hill used it, but Proctorio is basically the same thing as Tegrity, yes. Final exam. Oh, the final exam is optional. Okay, it will be given on the you know, whenever it's assigned. And again, being online, we have a little bit more flexibility. I think I let my students take the final exam for fall. Like, you know, I had it open like all day one Sunday after exams were over or whatever. So we can do things like that. But the way, and I'll just, you know, give you the good, the bad, the ugly, right? This is a difficult class, all right? Just the material is quite difficult. I actually did, I was reading an article from the AICPA not a couple of years ago, and it talked about the 5 hardest subjects on the CPA exam, the 5 hardest topics. And I realized I think we covered 4 of them in this class. Consolidations, equity method, earnings per share, and statement of cash flows. So this is difficult material. I kind of view this as a capstone class. I think it's a review to put everything together, and so that's why I enjoy teaching it. So you just need to know that when I say like you got to put in the time and the effort, I really mean that. But I just want to kind of you know, talk to you about the way this class, you know, kind of works. Is exam 1, which we're going to have in February, covers chapters 1 through 3. Many of my students in the past, not necessarily you, I don't want to like speak this into existence, like many people are rather surprised by their grade on exam 1, because again, the material's hard. It's all multiple choice. I give you the quizzes to kind of work you into the multiple choice format so that you're comfortable with taking classes, taking exams in that. The time pressure kind of gets to you. I've had people tell me that they scored higher on the ACT than they did on exam 1. So exam 1 is kind of difficult. Exam 2, and this is one of the changes I've made in this semester, is I've cut down. So after spring break, our second exam will just cover chapters 4 and 5. And again, chapters 4 and 5 are still covering consolidations. It used to cover chapters 4, 5, and 6. So it is still, kind of difficult material. Exam 3, we're going to cover chapter 6. Chapter 6 is variable interest entities, debt, earnings per share, and then we'll move into partnerships. And for most of you, partnerships is going to be like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, this is like back to really more of true accounting. And exam 3 will cover chapters 6 and 9. So there are, and so I'm telling you how our class is going to work, because the final exam is going to work a few different ways. All right. So for some of you, it's not going to be, maybe you do pretty well. You get a B on exam 1, A on exam 2, A on exam 3. You got an A and you opt out of the final. You're like, hey, I'm pretty pleased with that. I'm good to go. Some of you are here to gather hours to sit for the CPA exam. Maybe the material doesn't come together as quickly as you would like, but maybe you don't do well on exam 1, you do pretty good on exam 2 and exam 3, you end up with a B, and you're happy. For some of you, you maybe bomb exam 1. This has happened quite a bit. You bomb exam 1, but you really worked hard, and you feel like, gosh, you're just so close. You're so close to getting it. The final exam, so maybe that light bulb goes off, like halfway through April, April 15th, tax day, right? It's also the day that I got engaged to my wife, because I figured I would always remember it. But April 15th, that light bulb goes off and you're like, oh gosh, this all makes sense. The final exam will also replace your lowest grade. Okay, so if that, if you're in this class and you're working hard and you keep struggling with it, and that light bulb goes off, then you do well on exam 3 and you do well on the final exam, you can replace that exam 1 or exam 2. You'll replace your lowest exam with that. Okay, so there's a lot of options with that final exam, kind of a safety net for a lot of you. Okay. Let's see here. Policy on ethics is what I mentioned just a minute ago. I'm not out to try to catch you cheating or anything. We don't really have a lot of opportunity to cheat in this course. I strongly encourage you, and I'm going to set up some discussions in D2L, strongly encourage you to work homework with other people, share ideas. A lot of different people, a lot of different ways to solve problems. If you have questions, I'll put questions out there I'll put a discussion board out there on D2L. Working with other people is not a violation of academic integrity by any stretch of the imagination. Now, calling your uncle who is a CPA and having them do the homework for you, that is a violation of academic integrity. But it also hurts you. So, the homeworks are out there, number 1, to help your grade, number 2, to help you learn the material. Okay, so I don't want you to be, fearful of reaching out for help. Don't reach out for help during the exam, but please do reach out for help on the homeworks. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Is everybody okay? Like I mentioned, this class kind of works better as an interactive class. So at any time, feel free to stop me and we can go over everything. You can see like a kind of Well, I kind of took the face-to-face class and, adjusted my syllabus to it. It's kind of funny. Course policies. No person shall electronically record any class. Well, what I mean by that, I guess how that applies right here is I'm going to record, I'm going to upload all of my, I'm going to upload all of the recordings, use those responsibly, right? I would imagine, I've always thought this, that, I try to have a lot of fun in class and I enjoy it. If you rip 30 seconds out of anybody's communication, you could really make them say whatever you want them to say. So, this is for our use only for the recordings. I will try to put a lot of, I also have the classes from the fall semester. I did like some additional problems and some of those classes. Like if you miss a class and you're like, hey, I'm just not getting chapter 5, can I have some of those? I'll try to put those recordings out there as well. Let's see, universe drop ad. We have a little bit of extra time as a result of COVID for drop ad. Disruption of campus life. So there's one that's not really applicable. I'll probably be the one, like I say, when the fight breaks out in the background with my kiddos. Have all that. Okay. So that's our syllabus. What else? Share our D2L here. So some of you have hopefully logged on to D2L and seen all this. Over here, you have our class calendar. I'm going to add a folder here for discussions where you can introduce yourself and we can have some communication. If you have questions about any of the material or anything like that. As I mentioned, every class usually consists of oh, Luke, man, you're trying to pin me into things that we need to be talking about in. No, that's quite all right. I'll go. It's a little bit easier to do that now. I won't. I've done that in the past. Like, if you're on the border and you want to swing for the fences, I tend to not penalize you for trying to swing for the fences and taking the final exam. And so yeah, typically that's kind of my unwritten stance, which is now recorded for all eternity, and people will now hold me to it. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate that. Just kidding. So. For every chapter, we have a lecture component. The book PowerPoints that I use are here in this PowerPoint. Miranda, flexibility for taking exams anytime the day of the exam, or does it need to be taken during class time? I have. I'm up for discussion about that. Previously, in the fall semester, I had students take it, during our class time. And then when we got to the final exam, things were kind of crazy, because people had projects due, and we had that. So I'm open to that, particularly if anybody has, hardships or, working or whatever. We can talk about that. So yeah, just remind me about that, okay? So the PowerPoint I'll be following are found here in the PowerPoint folder. let's see, our syllabus, you know, and course schedule are here. Grade calculator, this will become more important as we get to the final exam, because the homework does make a difference. When you talk about dropping to your 2 lowest homeworks and quizzes, a lot of people are pleasantly surprised that, you know, where their grade is. Notes, templates, and solutions. So we're going to be doing a lot of Excel. Like, I use a lot of Excel in class. I just love to, you know, write out problems. And so what I'll try to do is scan those in and put those right here. There's templates that the book uses. Like here is the, you know, chapter 2 practice problem from class. I tend to upload, you know, and probably what I'll do is I'll actually rename this. I'll rename this like Fall 2020, and I'll create our own folder right here. So, like, you know, from chapter 3, the template that I'm going to use, the problems that will work will be, you know, 27, 28, 29, 35, and then here's the solution for that. So, this is actually an important place to go before class to find the Excel spreadsheets that we'll be using. Let's see what else. And again, I'll try to create a folder. I'll create a folder for discussions. I'll create a folder for you know, previous lectures and problems and things like that. Partnerships, I've got a ton of material right here to help you on chapter 9. And chapter 10 deals with liquidation. And again, you know, it's basically like a kind of a bonus homework and quiz, if you will. So I actually did a video in the fall that I'll put out there as well that will help you complete your chapter 10 homework, kind of walk you through everything you need to know. All right, and then our McGraw-Hill, I think you can access, you know, our Connect class here. It's just totally not in order. I have no idea why not, but I put out a, you know, as we get there, practice for exam 1, but all your assignments can be accessed here. We'll just take a look at, this should connect you, you know, directly to our Connect class. And, now I got to change here. All right, so here's our Connect page. Go to student view, what it'll look like for you. You know, for every chapter, you got a homework and a quiz. Homework is going to be actual, like the questions from the back of the book, or the end of the chapter. A lot of those we're going to cover in class. Like, I just picked, as I was going through and picking the homework, I was trying to pick questions that I thought were very important. Well, I tend to do the same thing as I lecture. I think that, wow, these are pretty good questions. So you might see a lot of the same questions in your homework and then what we do in class. Quiz is all multiple choice questions, all right? You only get one shot at the quiz. The quiz is designed, these are actually like test bank questions, and they're designed to move you into a multiple choice format. And you have to remember, you know, the CPA exam is all multiple choice. And so, you know, online it's just a whole lot easier. So that's what we have for there. All right. So that is our class syllabus, class administration. What questions do you have for me? Is how we perform on the exam practice a good indicator of how we'll do on the real exam? Yeah, I think that, again, the quizzes and the exam practice, now the practice exam is not always like all multiple choice questions. So there's not like a direct correlation, but what I do is I have you very prepared, not only for what material to cover, but what material not to cover. Okay. you should feel pretty good going into the exam. Like I hope to have you pretty well prepared. Ryan, how many of the check my work chances do we have on the homework? Unlimited. Homework is a workout for you. Okay, so I think you get 3 shots at homeworks, but like, so, if there's 10 questions and you on your first go you get 5 correct, the next go round you only do the 5 that you missed. Okay, so your homework is designed, number 1, to give you a workout, and number 2, to help your grade. Wasim, you got a question for me?
Yes, Professor. Good afternoon. I have a quick question. For studying for the chapters, do you recommend we first look at the PowerPoints, get familiarized with the ideas, and then read, or the other way around?
Well, that's a really good question. So it probably depends on your learning style, right? One thing that I will tell you is one thing I will tell you, kind of / warn you about, is there's a lot of material that we're not going to cover. Okay, so one of the advantages I think of coming to class and following along is particularly as we get into later chapters, like chapter 6, we're only going to cover really like 2 major concepts, right? And so the reason I'm kind of waffling a little bit here, Wasim, is I don't want you to like read the whole chapter and then as we go through the lecture and be like, gosh, why did I waste my time? But I would probably yes, go through either the PowerPoint or like skimming the chapter before the lecture, so that you're not learning new concepts as I'm lecturing. And that way, when I say like, hey, we're not going to cover learning objective 2, you can just kind of mark that out, and you haven't put forth a whole lot of time. And then after the lecture, I would strongly encourage you at that point to go back and then read the chapter, like those sections, those the things that we're covering. Every book has its flaws, and this book is no different. But this book I've taught out of 3 different advanced accounting books. This book is probably the most readable book. I think they have really good examples and really good explanations. Okay. So so that's a good question. So but certainly I would try to put forth a little bit of preparation before. Samuel, how well have students done in this class in the past? Well, let's see. So how many people are repeating this class right now? Because I think I had 2 people pass the class from the fall. Two out of 40, I think, passed in the fall. I'm just kidding. I'm totally teasing. Everybody's dropping right now. No. Truly, I kind of mentioned the groups of and Matthew, I'm coming back to your questions. No, let me answer Matthew's question first because it's pertinent. He asked, which this used to be my big question too, right? Are the exams 10 questions? Are the exams 10 questions so that like if you miss one, you drop a grade? No, the exams are usually about 20 to 25 questions, and usually they're I kind of have some built-in flexibility as well. So like the exams will, like the maximum will be somewhere around like 105 points. So you kind of get a freebie as well. No, in terms of in terms of grade distribution, as I mentioned, there's a lot of people in here who are just going to kind of get it, and breeze through the 3 exams. The only people I think who have not made it through the course, usually it's because, and again, the class is difficult, the material is difficult. It's not me, okay? So when you're filling out your student evaluation, blame the material, not the professor. But the material is hard. I try not to make it any harder than it needs to be. I think a lot of people kind of get caught off with the time commitment, and so people have made those people have made the decision like, hey, this is but probably a bit off a little bit more than I can chew right now, and they either drop the class or whatever, right? But I think what I've found is that the people who I'll give you an example. There was a young lady in the fall who she worked really hard. She was always participating in class. She was active and she knew the material. She just couldn't put it all together on the exams. And like she was debating dropping it. And you know, when it was all said and done, you know, by the time we got to the final exam, her grade was in the low C range. And so she had the opportunity, she was a non-traditional student. She had the opportunity to take a C if she wanted and just be done with it, or she chose to take the final exam. And the final exam actually, you know, some of the things had come together and she ended up with a B in the course. So I think like if you're really working and you know, putting in the effort every day, you know, you might not get the results immediately. Like I said, exam one, I think catches a lot of people off guard. It has, you know, from the first time I taught this class, it's just hard material. So, you know, you just need to be prepared for that. Yeah, no, you know, our exam is, you know, 20 to 25 questions. And again, your homeworks are designed to kind of bump your grade up. Your overall grade, your homeworks and quizzes should kind of bump that overall grade up by about half a letter grade. So, you know, no need to stress about exams. I mean, other than normal stress. Yeah, 10 questions is pretty intense. Yeah, yeah. What other questions we got? Anything? Ready to jump into some material? Let's do that. All right. I'm going to just kind of jump into, where'd it go? Well, hold on, sorry. I want to jump into chapter 1 just a little bit. And all right, there we go. All right. Equity method of accounting for investments. And what I tend to find is that, scoot this over. What I tend to find in covering investments is that investments is typically covered in intermediate accounting, either 1 or 2, and it's covered like at the end of a semester. Let me see here. Intermediate 2, and what I tend to find though is like it's covered maybe towards the end of the semester, or it's given such little attention that people are kind of like, man, I kind of remember that, but I not really. So so what I want to, so I think it's a really good kind of reintroduction to the equity method and how to account for investments in other companies. And then we're going to use it extensively as we get into chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll use it a whole lot. But in essence, companies can buy stock of other companies, just like you and I can go buy stock of other companies. Other companies can buy stock in other companies. And the way that we account for, so the way that we account for that depends on the level of influence that a company has over another company. So why would a company buy the stock of another company? Well, it could be trying to just earn a return on cash. You know what, Tesla earned like what, $11 billion or 11 billion% return over 2020, right? So any company or individual who was invested in Tesla earned a pretty nice return. So it could be just simply to earn a return, or it could be to gain voting privileges, to influence another company. And obviously these are two very different motivations. So the way that we're going to account for investments in other companies is going to depend on the level of influence. Let's see. Yeah. So there's 4 methods used to report investments in other companies. Fair value, and fair value and cost method are basically the same thing, right? These are mark to market. Holy moly! Yeah, I had heard about that, and then they were in discussions to, you know, as they were creating, they were creating another electric car, about buying Tesla. Yeah, you always like the what ifs. I own some Tesla stock, and I think Elon Musk is one of the most brilliant men ever. But when he went on Joe Rogan's podcast and he was smoking pot, I was like, you know, he's one of these guys, like he's a brilliant genius, but I'm just not sure that he can pull it through. So I sold my Tesla stock at like $300, and you know, now I could be sending my kids to college with it. Yeah, he's a little rogue. It would be an understatement, right? So fair value method. So if we buy stock in another company, we're just going to simply report that stock at fair value at every reporting period. Cost method, you know, if you own stock of a private company, it may not have a readily available fair value. That actually wouldn't surprise me at all, Luke. So yeah, he is. I follow him on Twitter, and he was. Somebody posted that he was the world's richest man. He's like, huh, okay, back to work. The fair value method and the cost method are basically the same thing. We're going to talk about, so we'll kind of combine those. But that's, that's when you don't have influence over another company. At the other end of the spectrum is to consolidate financial statements, and this is what we do in chapters 2 through 6. We're going to use we're going to consolidate financial statements. That's when you own greater than 50%, and the equity method. So this is the key of chapter 1 right here. The method that we use to account for investments in other entities depends upon the degree of influence the stockholder has over the investee. Okay. Fair value method. The investor holds a small percentage of equity. It doesn't significantly affect the operations, and it's only made in anticipation of dividends or market appreciation. Okay. There are kind of there's exceptions to the rule, and we're going to talk about those. I want you to kind of use your critical thinking skills as we go through this. But generally, the rule of thumb is anything less than 20% ownership of another company, we're gonna use the fair value method. Okay. Now, some of you that you may follow, you sound like you follow the news and the stock market pretty well. You can find there's these activist investors who they buy up shares of companies just to try to make changes, to try to shake it up a little bit. And you may see those people only own like 8-9% of a company. So you can have significant influence over a company with simply by owning 8, 9, 10%. Like if I owned 10% of Apple, I think people would probably listen to what I had to say, right? But for our class, we're going to use these rules of thumb. Like anytime you see on a problem that, you know, this company owns 15% of another company, 15% of the stock of another company, that's where we're really going to be talking about the fair value method, okay? There are exceptions to the rule, but again, as I mentioned early on, I'm not out to trick you, right? I want you to understand that influence can be gained in a lot of different ways. But, you know, we're going to have kind of these black and white, you know, bright lines to differentiate. For the fair value method, you're going to record that investment at cost, you know, debit investment, credit, cash, or whatever. And we're going to adjust it to fair value if the fair value is determinable. So, you know, if it's Tesla or whatever, we just go to the Wall Street Journal at 12/31 and we determine, you know, what is the fair value. Here's one of the big takeaways, and I want you to be able to compare and contrast this, right? Change what's included, you know, with that investment. What does it look like on the balance sheet? So under the fair value method, what does it look like on the balance sheet? It's going to be recorded at fair value. What about the income statement? On the income statement, changes in fair values and dividends are recognized as income. Okay, so I didn't mention on our exams, I'll let you have like a note sheet. I used to call it a cheat sheet, but you know, it sounds weird to say that I'll allow you to cheat on the exam, but I'll give you a cheat sheet. I'll let you have a note sheet front and back. You know, I would have these 3 categories listed on your cheat sheet for exam 1, right? So, you know, what's included, you know, how is that investment recorded on the balance sheet? What's included in income? These fair values can be impaired. It was kind of interesting because, you know, I would have been saying, you know, if the fair value drops significantly, an investment may be impaired. Gosh, I thought last March when you know, pandemic hit and the stock market crashed in March, I would have said we were going to have some impairment issues, and it took all of like 6 weeks to recover those, right? So kind of crazy. Consolidation. So that's fair value. Can y'all hear like the wrestling match going on in the background, or is it just me?
Barely.
Well, it'll get worse here in a minute as we as we get further into the WWE. I think punches are now being thrown. Consolidation. So if you own more than 50% of the outstanding, good. I'm glad. When one company buys more than 50% of the outstanding voting stock, then we consolidate financial statements. I'm not gonna talk about this a whole lot right now because, as I mentioned, you know, we're just talking about the categories, right? So greater than 50%, you're going to consolidate. If you think about it, like, you know, a share of stock is a vote. So if you own 51 shares of stock and you get 51 out of 100 votes, you win every vote. So you really only have one entity, okay? So greater than 50%, we're gonna consolidate financial statements. We're gonna talk about that, chapters 2 through 6. This is one of the things I wanted to point out. In chapter 1, and this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Wasim, in preparing. Like in chapter 1, there's this whole thing about variable interest entities. This is really interesting, and it's so interesting that we're going to have a whole section on it when we get to chapter 6. Okay, so you know, you don't need to worry about variable interest entities when in chapter 1. The equity method. The equity method is the heart of chapter 1. We're really going to focus you know, most of what we talk about from this point forward is going to be dealing with the equity method. The equity method, when a company buys enough stock to exercise significant influence, and again, that's an important term, on the investee operations, whether it intends to or not. Okay, but here's our bright line right here: ownership between 20 and 50%. So, you know, I'm not out to trick you like, oh, they own 19%, but they have a relative on the board. You're going to see ownership between 20 and 50%. We're going to use the equity method. And as we mentioned, significant influence might be present with much lower ownership percentages. Here's what's really important, as kind of an introduction. The investor's share of investee dividends is recorded as a decrease in the investment account, not income. Okay, so one of the things that we compare and contrast in chapter 1 is we compare and contrast these methods. Like, what's different about the balance sheet? Well, fair value, that investment's going to be reported at fair value. Equity method, what's that investment going to be reported at? It's going to be reported at cost, and then we're going to make some changes to it. What's reported in income? Well, for fair value, dividends and changes in fair value are going to be reported on the income statement. Dividends and changes in fair value are not recorded in income under the equity method. Okay, and very important to know as we compare and contrast this. The sole criterion for applying the equity method: significant influence. Okay, and again, learning objective 3 would be this is an interesting topic to read and think about. Representation on the board of directors, like how can you gain significant influence? And what they're talking about is like if you own 10% of a company, but you have significant representation on the board, you might have significant influence. If the entity can exercise complete control over the investee, you're going to consolidate. Okay. But for our purposes, and I want you to know this, I want you to understand this, but you're really going to be looking for this 20 to 50%. Okay, and here's a great chart to kind of look at that. Fair value method or cost method, less than 20%. You don't have the ability to significantly influence operations. Between 20 and 50%, you do have the ability to significantly influence the operations of a company. You're going to use the equity method. Now, notice here it says fair value. Fair value has become, kind of it's easy to fair value, to determine a fair value for stocks, right? So there is a fair value option that you can use. So like if you own 30% of a company and you really don't have any intention of influencing that company's operations, then there is a fair value option that you can make one time and you can't ever undo it, and say like, hey, we're just going to account for this under the fair value. And then anything greater than 50%, we have to consolidate financial statements. Okay. And as I mentioned, this section down here, this is variable interest entities. We're going to cover that in chapter 6. So you are not responsible for that right now. All right. I think I'm going to stop right there. As I mentioned, my voice is not in mid-season form. Probably have to go stitch a kid up in the background, something like that. What do we have any questions about? I did want to show you. Does everybody know how to access the recordings in D2L? Okay. All right. Because what tends to happen, like if you go into the let me just run through that real quick. I'm just going to share real quickly. All right. So if you go to our D2L class and you go to our Collaborate Ultra, this is where you're going to find all of our class meetings, right? So this is the meeting that we're in right now. If you go up to these three little lines up here, the menu, you'll see all of our sessions, but you'll also see the recordings. Okay, so there's no recordings found here within the past 30 days. Once this class is over and it uploads, it will be right here under this recordings area right there. We're getting a little bit of grief. I'm going to try to actually like download those recordings and put them in D2L. And I've got some other recordings from the fall, but you know, they don't want us to just keep our recordings out there forever. But for right now, like if you're looking for the class recording, that's where you'll find that. Okay. Your assignment is to get registered on Connect, okay, by Thursday. We've got a little bit of time. We don't have any assignments that are due immediately, but we do cover most of what's in Chapter 1. So if you get your book, you can begin reading, and we'll pick up and kind of finish the lecture part of Chapter 1 on Thursday. I'm going to probably, I'll create some discussion folders where we can do some introductions. I do love it, by the way, and it's not super necessary, but like I can see Wasim's face, Daniel's face. Otherwise, like you just look like the character from Scream. Like if you don't have Gritarius, did I say that right? Gritarius, nice picture there. I feel like I can connect with you, right? So. So if you can put a profile picture, I'd love to, kind of put faces to names. Is that right? How would it be? Gritarius?
Yeah, Gritarius.
Gritarius. All right. I gotcha. All right. So your assignments are get on Connect. Anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered? Syllabus, D2L, Connect, or equity method? No? All right. Let's see. I'll judge this class so far. We get a gold medal for today. Okay. All right. Well, very cool. So and again, if you have any questions about administration, certainly let me know. Otherwise we will reconvene here on Thursday at 12:30. Okay. Y'all have a great evening. All right. Stop.